what's up everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast, where on this episode, we are going to be talking about the big NewsNation UAP story that was supposed to change everything, right? The Ross Coulthart brand new episode of Reality Check that promised an up-close and clear image of a UAP that resembled an egg, and testimony from several first-hand members of, a reverse engineering program. Now, before we get into this, I want to apologize if my voice or my breathing sounds a bit messed up. I unfortunately did come down with the RSV virus, which isn't fun, especially because it's respiratory. And, they told me that for a couple years, my immune system was going to be a bit compromised, so I got to really stay on top of this. But look, I love what we're doing with this podcast right now, and I want to stay on top of it, and I want to keep everything rolling. And I know this was a big story that just came out, and I have a lot to say about it. So if my breathing sounds labored or heavy at times, I apologize up front. And if you guys are enjoying more episodes, and with the episodes coming regularly, the only thing I ask is that if you have not yet, please click the subscribe and the notifications buttons, and please visit our Patreon page. This show cannot grow and reach its goals without your support. I really want to bring on an editor to handle the editing, and I also want this to grow to a place where this podcast can be mobile, and we can go out and actively investigate the stories of all the mysterious things that occur in the world. So I'm having a blast doing these, and I hope you guys are enjoying them as well. Once again, the Patreon link is in the description box below. So let's get into it. All week long, well, the last, 2 to 3 weeks, we kept hearing from just about everybody in the public spectrum of the UAP UFO narrative that something big was coming. And one of the main people that was pushing this was Stephen Greer. And he said something big was coming, and it was with a different group that his team worked with. And he kind of took, without saying it's my guy, he kind of put himself in the know on it, and he kind of led the way. And immediately after it was announced that this story was coming out, I noticed that Lou Elizondo immediately stepped up and started trying to take credit for it as well, even though he was not directly connected with this individual either. His name is Jake Barber, this Tier 1 helicopter operator. But he started saying things like, I've worked over the last year and a half to, provide a lane so Mr. Barber could come forward. And, he had alluded to the fact that he knew his story, and he was really proud to have, been someone who helped to bring this to life. So you saw both sides kind of jockeying for position to take credit. Now, I bring that up for a reason. We're going to come back to this later, because when I saw it, I was like, I don't know that I like this. Again, we'll come back to this. Just keep that thought in your head. And what I mean is the fact that the two main public sides that don't like each other, because Dr. Greer does not like Lou Elizondo, says straight up that he is a disinformation agent, which I actually believe that. I'm not a fan of Lou either, or his entire circle, to be honest. And but look, Dr. Greer has some things in his past that are questionable as well too. But the reason I have a bit more, trust in Dr. Greer is the fact that he, at least knowingly, is not employed by the government, that he is independent. And I don't think, as I've said before, I don't think it's a bad thing that he's gone out and found ways to fund this pursuit, because in order to do what he wants to accomplish, it's going to take a whole lot of money. And he's done it through filmmaking. He's done it through, his live events that he does with, this CE5, and he's done it through merchandise and a lot of other ways, through private investment, that I actually think is pretty impressive for what he's done. But I'll come back to this, the fact that he and Lou Elizondo were basically indirectly trying to take credit for this new drop of information that was coming. So then, we hear Reality Check. Here it is. It's coming on this Saturday, and that was a few days ago, that this was going to change everything. Now remember, at this point, I had just released a podcast saying, these guys, all of them, have painted themselves into a corner. Because, look, when they first came out and they had the first 3 videos, the Go Fast and the Gimbal and the Tic Tac, what made that exciting is the fact that these were like government people, right? Which is kind of ironic too, because forever we said, well, when the government said there are no UFOs, we would go, well, they're full of shit, they're lying, you can't believe in the government. So then the government says, okay, these are UFOs. And the same people go, see, the government said, so it must be real, which is it's funny, it's ironic. Which the main reason I've always felt as though that there could be is just simply because of the amount of historic sightings, historic literature there is on UFOs and things from the sky. There's just a lot of history surrounding the phenomena, no matter what the culture is, no matter how far back you go in time. So when it comes to the government saying things are real or not, to me personally, I didn't find that to be really all that compelling. But what I did find compelling is that the government was willing to talk about it now for some reason, right? And over time, we've seen the same kind of, the same routine played. A piece of evidence will come out. They'll say, this piece of evidence is awesome, but it's missing the really cool part. That's filmed and it's out there somewhere. Or they'll show you some piece of evidence that's very average. And they'll be like, but what you're not seeing is what was going on just off screen, right? We've heard all these stories. And slowly but surely, all of these stories in one way or the other have been debunked. Whether or not it was something as stupid as, oh, look at these flying pyramids, when they're bokehs, and then you later find out that not only were they bokehs, which is basically a lens distortion, but they know that they were in fact drones, and they know which ship they came from, they know why they were there. All these things come out over time, right? And kind of the same thing with the even Ryan Graves, and I truly believe that Ryan Graves is an honest man and is doing his best to address something he very much believes is a danger. But Graves is the one that was talking about the objects, the squares inside the clear circles that were flying around, and there was a bunch of near collisions, and these things were everywhere. And well, you come to find out later on that these objects do exist. There's patents on them, and they're radar breakers and or radar jammers. Now, why they were up and in an area that our military would be flying, like nobody knows that. Nobody knows, at least publicly, why they would risk the lives of our own pilots to test those things or to have them out there. But my overall point here is that the same thing happens where a piece of footage comes out, like the jellyfish. And it's like, wow, that's really crazy. And nobody knows, like, instantly what it is. And then slowly but surely, they start figuring out, oh, this is more than likely 99%, it is a collection of EID balloons, for the holiday over there. And then once again, you hear the same thing. Oh, well, this footage is cool, but there's other footage where this thing right here, this jellyfish, it flies out and it plunges into the water. And then it stays underwater for 17 minutes, and then it comes out of the water, and it fires away into space at lightning speed. And I know where that footage is, but no one's seen it. Hopefully one day it'll come out, right? We've heard all this shit. We've heard it all. And after a while, these types of stories really start to hurt more than they help. Because it's like it's the boy who cried wolf, right? You can only hear so many times, oh, this thing that's coming, it's going to be the real deal. This next piece you're going to see, it's going to be the real deal. And then we started hearing it in story format. David Grush came out. This was going to be the end all to everything. David Grush comes out and, was very good on camera and has, an incredible track record in history. And you find out he worked in counterintelligence as well. And you find out that, oh shit, out of all these stories he told, he himself hasn't experienced anything. He spoke to a bunch of people who saw something. It was the whole, man, I haven't seen it, but I know a dude, I know a dude. Or I know 10 dudes, or I know 40 dudes, So, same thing, you get all excited at first, and you start to realize, wow, okay, so after all that shit he said, he's honestly just taking the words of other people without any proof whatsoever. And then after a while, once the press starts kind of beating up on these guys because, they're reading that the comments of the public, and they're seeing that interest in this shit is starting to wane really hard. Because it's the same thing, it's overhyped and underdelivered over and over and over again. And they know it. So you're thinking that, or the thinking is, well, there's a process of this. At least I was, because I've worked, I began my career working in journalism, and whenever you got the lead on a story that was coming out, we would practice this. When I was 19 years old, learning journalism 101, it was about how to slow milk a story. When you knew you had the story, and you knew you had all the information and you were out in front of it, you would slow milk that story because you get the most, listeners, or in today's world, views, right? Meaning it's the same general selling principle as like computers, right? If you have a computer that can go really fast like they do, they don't just bring out the fastest computer on the market and sell it to you. They figure out how to sell you, 17 different computers that inch up in speeds every 3 months, right? You keep going back. It's the same general process with journalism, right? Like, just give you crumbs and bring you back over and over again. Well, when it comes to this, I think because it deals with something that, a lot of people find important, which is, are we alone? That question, are we alone? We get really tired of it. And you start feeling like, man, I am getting played by a lot of these people. And what's really difficult about it to me is that I firmly believe that there's something to the phenomenon. And like I said before, the math is in the favor of the believer by far. As big as the universe is and the galaxy is, and realizing that our understanding of science is still very rudimentary, and realizing that the jumps that we've made in the last 100 years alone in technology, it would only make sense that we would be being either watched or potentially visited by technology, at least, if not creatures. And like I said, if we really want to let our minds go, like I've said before, I have a tendency to think that there's probably a decent chance that we are being watched by some kind of alien race that is from under the water. And that's a whole other episode, but there's a lot of reasons to think that that's a possibility. And remember, when I say possibility, that means that there's evidence that suggests there is no proof. We don't have proof. I mean, that's the bottom line. We have no proof. Proof, meaning like it's inarguable, right? And that's what proof is. We don't have proof that there's aliens here. We don't. Not yet. But this is what's being dangled. So this, this story was supposed to be that first big piece of proof. We were going to see an actual alien craft. And there was going to be a guy with such credentials and, such information that it was going to drive this home. And Lou Elizondo said in the interview I watched before this that in his mind, this story could potentially be the biggest story in human history in the last 100 years. And so I'm honestly sitting here going, wow. So maybe this is the reason why, he and Greer are trying to kind of get in front of it and try to take credit for it. Now, why is it important that these guys want to take credit for it? Well, this is how these dudes make their living, right? So whenever landmark events happen, whether it's, congressional hearings, whether it's laws that go into effect, whether it's releasing footage that proves something, they want their name attached to that because that's how they author books. That's how they go on the air. That's how, they get booked to do college lectures and speaking. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's the reason why. They want it because they need that financial credibility, because that's what it is. It's credibility that lends to their ability to make money off this stuff, right? It's the same reason why, NewsNation and all these media companies would slow milk a story. But the danger in slow milking, again, is that you can slow milk to the point where just nobody gives a fuck anymore. So I knew going into this story, they are going to have something good, something really good. And the marketing was, it was full blown. Like, let's do this. So, all of you guys, I tuned in. And, the story is real simple. I couldn't believe how simple it was. There was a gentleman who said his name was Jake Barber. That was, he was a pilot, a Tier 1 operator pilot, which means that he was hired by the government to basically do helicopter pickups. And, by his own admittance, the vast majority of the time it was of, normal, man-made craft or, classified craft that, was ours. And by the way, he kept referring to this location as the range. I made a few phone calls of some people that I know that I knew wouldn't kind of know what the range was. And I think I'm sure it's probably out there by now. If not, I'm 95% sure he's referencing Tonopah, which is Area 52, also known as the range, the Tonopah test range. It's the area, Area 51 is where a lot of the military planes and things are constructed. A lot of weaponry is constructed. But Tonopah is where a lot of it's actually physically tested. And it's also referred to by a lot of people as the range. So that's what Jake referred to it as, the range. Well, by his own words, he said, he's called in to compartmentalize the process of him picking up, whether it be, ships, guns, weaponry, anti-weaponry, things that we test. And he said it was his job to simply go from point A to point B. Pick up A, drop it off at point B and go home. And that there was not like anyone would sit him down and would say, this is what you're picking up. He made it clear that that's not what they would do. They would give him a description of what it is, where it's at, description of, the details he would need, like How big is it? You know, what shape is it? What does it weigh? You know, so he would know what he would be up against. And his proof that he picked up an extraterrestrial craft was that he showed up and he looked down and he saw what looked like an egg, a 20-foot white egg. And he knew by looking at it that it was alien, and that his friends knew that as well by looking at it. That's his proof. That he felt it was alien. I mean, I'm not making this shit up. That was his proof. He looked at it and saw it and said, "Oh, I don't see wings. I don't see this. It's got to be alien." And my friends feel like it's non-human intelligence as well. That's what they said, NHI, non-human intelligence. And he said this happened, 10 years ago. And in the last couple years, remember, when they're trying to get all this, stuff through the congressional level, that some people told him that he was in fact working on non-human intelligence, and that the eggs were that. And that's it. Okay? Like, as far as why he knows that was non-human intelligence. Now, I'm sure you probably already know where this is going, but they showed footage of this. And right away I knew something was off. And I think a couple of people have pointed this out already now too, but he said when he's talking, he said he pulled up at night to pick up this egg. And he goes, I had my night vision on, and I showed up and I clicked it up, meaning he took it off and he looked down and saw the egg, and then he put his night vision back on and he saw the egg again, and he said he looked at it a few times just to see it clearly, and he knew what it looked like. And then they have footage that they show, and it's clearly, it can't be his footage, because they're definitely using the night vision, the green screen night vision, but you can tell they're using it during the day because it's so incredibly bright. And I've worked with military night vision. When I worked on the Rising project I did with Spielberg, we worked with the military, and we worked with actually a company out of White Sands, and that stuff was amazing. And in that, I really wish that episode at the West Virginia State Penitentiary came out, because that was the best night vision equipment that was on the market. Like, we literally had to do background checks to use that stuff. We had to agree that we wouldn't enter non-NATO friendly countries with it. It was really crazy, the stuff we had to do to use that equipment. And at night, yeah, you can see everything at night. Like, anywhere you would look with that, you could make out, anywhere, from a good distance too, a good, 150, 200 yards away, you could see a whole building. But it's not like it was like daylight. It's not like it was just brighter than shit. It was just, you could just make out depth in building and things like that. So this footage is incredibly bright. In fact, I'll play the footage here for you right now. This is it. Check it out. So as you can see, this footage is really, really, really bright. And that's not that big of a deal in a sense, but what it does tell me is that clearly they were picking these things up, more than once or twice, because why else would they have extra footage of it? Because like I said, this was not nighttime footage. There's no way. So that just tells me that they were doing this semi-often. Now again, if this is alien non-human intelligence, UAP crafts, Are we to believe that they all came here and they either crashed or landed at Area 52? They all crashed or landed at the Tonopah test range, or any range that we test, incredible technology and our technological advancements. I mean, it didn't make any sense whatsoever. I was just like, oh Jesus, what a fucking nothing burger, man. And not only that, within like minutes, people had already pointed out that there's absolutely things that we have that are patented. That are, you know what? I'm going to leave a link below. I saw one guy explain it very well, which I think is fantastic. He's a great filmmaker that's all over this stuff. But essentially, there are plasma drones that create a vacuum inside a balloon, so it's lighter than air. And these drones are meant to be really high aerostat cameras, meaning that they can quickly rise up to 60,000, 70,000 feet in the air. It's essentially like a controllable small blimp that travels in really high altitudes that you can film things from. So it's a surveillance vehicle that we have, that America has, and this is known. So he just didn't recognize it. I don't think he was lying at all, but he didn't recognize it. And look, he admitted it's not like anybody said to him, this is where it's from, this is the planet it's from, this is the aliens have, this is how we know it's alien. He just said that a couple people told him that it was non-human intelligence. But if it was and it was back engineered, and that's how we got it, that because it's a plasma based drone, and if we back engineered that from alien technology from a different time, that was never presented. It was never said. It was never stated. So my point is, there was nothing whatsoever to say that this was alien technology. Like nothing. And even when you looked at it, the footage looks ridiculous. It looks like, I'll play it again here. It looks like a balloon. It looks like a guy set down a big 20-foot balloon, and when he hits the ground, it starts kind of rolling around like a balloon. That's what it looks like. So that was a massive, massive nothing burger. But then things got super weird, and I'm going to tell you what really bothers me the most about this entire narrative in general. He started talking about essentially CE5. He was saying, as always, like what I always tell you, they show you one piece of footage and then they tell you another incredible story of this other thing. And he said there was another vehicle that looked like a big silver UFO. It was disc-shaped, and they would pick that up, and one night he picked it up. This is what this helicopter pilot's saying. And while he was flying it to the next location on the range, he had some, quote, psionic or psychic event where he felt like there was a presence of God, like a female God, a feminine God, he said, that he felt love and sadness and fear at the same time, but he felt like this thing connected with him and that it's protecting him still today, and that, essentially, he was able to pull off CE5, Greer CE5, and that it's real, that he can connect subconsciously and summons these vehicles, and they will come in. They will appear, supposedly. Now, it's not crazy for people to make these types of assertions, because if you've studied, UFOs and UFO contactee cases, people have been saying stuff like this since the beginning of time. The issue with it is that it's completely unproven. It's completely unproven. So to get the public to jump onto the belief that a patented, known, this is all going to come out, aerostat, you know, basically a floating, aerostat drone that's using plasma technology, that exists to get people to buy that that's an alien craft. Oh, and then on top of it, to get them to buy that these craft are controlled by some subconscious connection and that psychic ability is absolutely real. It's a lot, man. It's a lot to put out there with no proof. Proof. I'm talking proof, okay? No proof. And it brings me back to my overall problem that I've had with this whole narrative since the beginning. And this is on Lou's side or Greer's side. Okay, when you say we've mastered anti-gravity and that we're using, gravitic propulsion, this is not like a small thing, okay? Like, to suddenly control gravity is new physics. I mean, it's physics on a level that is just unthinkable. I mean, we're not even close to it. Like, I guess my point is, in this entire narrative of all these people that are involved, where are the scientists? Where are the physicists? Like, why don't we have any scientists coming out going, I've watched this footage and I've seen this object flying around the sky and this is how this is possible. This is potentially an area of of Einstein's model that could be wrong, that if we went this way, I'm just talking out my ass because I'm not a physicist, but I'm saying, like, there's nobody in the world of science that is stepping up, that is saying all these things could be possible right now because of breakthroughs like in this area. In fact, we're going the opposite way right now. Now we're showing footage that of known objects, even though they're not publicly known, like at large, but objects that exist, and we're trying to get the public to latch onto that as alien. And now we're trying to go the other way, which is like, oh, and we're going to prove all this with other unprovable things. This happened, and all this is going on, and we've re-engineered it all, and that's not how we now can control gravity. And we've been able to control gravity since 1950, but yet no scientists know how this is being done. None of them are speaking to this. No one's talking about it. So to get you to believe that unproven, now we're going to talk about, psychic ability and CU5, which, again, maybe all that's real, but that would have to be proven. This is just quickly going off a cliff. It is going off a cliff. And all of these dudes, I don't think this disclosure movement, I don't think it can suffer one more total, like, fucking nothing burger like this story, like this Jake Barber story, this egg. I don't think it could withstand one more ridiculous story like this before it just loses complete steam and people just sign it off. And people are just like, listen, these guys don't got the shit, man. I mean, another thing is, too, why is nobody talking about the bodies? I mean, did everybody not hear David Grush say that biologics, bodies, alien bodies came with some of these crafts? You're going to tell me that alien craft were grounded, and we took the craft and we back engineered it, and that's what we've been working on. But we didn't do anything with the bodies. We didn't look into what could be accomplished through cloning, what could be accomplished with, is there anything that we could borrow? Is there anything that any kind of hybrid, like can we do that every day with animals? We didn't look to see if there's any kind of, medicinal values to any of that. Like, no one's even talking about that. And that's like the real story. It's like, holy shit, if there's bodies, holy shit. But like, again, there's just, there's just nothing but these stories. And if I could say anything to Ross Cohart, or if I can get Dr. Greer in a room, or whoever, I'd be like, guys, listen, I get it. You want to slow milk this because that's where the most dollar or the biggest bang comes as far as you getting paid. I get it. That's how you make the most money with this. You're running out of time, man. Everybody's smelling the bullshit in this play. If there's really, videos of bodies, if there are really 13-minute videos of this, in Italy, supposedly this glowing orb that like shot down helicopters and all these crazy stories you've all heard about this footage, that if there's footage that supposedly a pilot has like 50 feet from the cockpit of another UAP, like if there are bodies somewhere that are stored, like it's time to roll that stuff out, guys, or you are going to lose the last ounce of people giving a shit about this, because it's just gotten to a ridiculous level. I mean, this is just my opinion. You guys tell me if you agree or not. But that NewsNation story, Ross, come on. I mean, I knew it was non-human intelligence because of how I felt, because it looked like an egg and it didn't have wings. What? This is crazy. I mean, I don't know how you can just jump to that. How you can just jump to that conclusion. And he says, and the guys that were picking it up with me, we just knew there was something in the air, that this was different. They've got to do better. They've got to do better. And I get that everybody has their own agenda and all that, but look, it's just time. If there's anything real, yeah, they got to get to it soon, or else I honestly fear that this whole movement is going to go away. And I think that would be unfortunate, because I do think there is something to it. I do think there is something real to all of it. I think there's too many, out of all the footage that's out there, there's a lot of footage of real things. But it's hard to isolate it and determine which is real, because there's so much of it. There's a lot of real things on the web that people are filming that don't make any sense. But it's just such an overflow. And historically speaking, there are so many cases that have been proven to be something truly unique happened. Something truly bizarre happened. And historically, dating back, through text and hieroglyphs, and there's so much to this story. But they're going to lose everybody if they keep this shit up. So I want to know what you guys think. Like I said, if you guys want to know more about the egg and the aerostat and the drones using the plasma, I'll leave the link in the description box below. And like I said, leave me your comments. I really want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think that this was, or am I wrong? Was this an incredible, earth-shattering news story? And did this push the dial for you? If you were on the fence, did this make you go, oh man, now it's real? Or am I off here? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, much love to everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I will be back tomorrow with another episode about Mr. Jeremy Corbell, because I think he just had his lifeline chopped by his own team. And I will explain why I feel this way tomorrow. Until then, much love, everybody, and I will talk to you soon. All the best.